Corso, Ms. Harnoy, judges, parents, faculty, and of course students, to the 28th Benoit Salisbury Senior Oratorical Contest. The Senior Oratorical Contest is one of the school's most important events, and it has been an honor for Mr. David Thibodeau and for me to be part of this extraordinary competition. And indeed, it is a competition. The rules, however, are pretty straightforward. Seniors choose a topic, and their speech must be 3 minutes to 5 minutes long. Our timekeepers, Ms. Gelsomino and Mr. Stone, will hold up cards at the 3-minute point, at the 4-minute point, and the card nobody wants to see, the red 5-minute. If the speech exceeds 5 minutes, points will be deducted. If the speech does not beat the 3-minute point, points will be deducted. The scores are based on language use, delivery, organization, preparation, and content. The difficult task of scoring the individual speeches is left to our distinguished panel of judges, and they are Mrs. Virginia Harnois, Smithfield School Committee. Can you stand, Ms. Harnois? Mr. Tommy Hines, Smithfield High School graduate, English teacher, and great friend. Hines. Ms. Susan Barron, lecturer, Department of Communications at Bryant University. And Mr. Robert Salisbury, former teacher, guidance counselor. The students do not know the order in which they will be called. And I will ask you to not applaud as they are introduced and they're walking towards the microphone. Please refrain from doing so. After their speech, by all means, show your appreciation. These students have spent many, many hours working with their coaches, writing, rewriting, editing, practicing, and practicing to do what they're about to do. And it is a very courageous thing that they are doing. People say that public speaking is more frightening than death. So for them to do this in front of a group, let alone a group of their own peers, is really something to be lauded. So I know that you will give them the attention, the courtesy, and the respect that they so richly deserve. And so now, I would ask the contestants in this year's Senior Oratorical Contest to please stand and proceed to the chorus room. We'll have to wait 1 second for our first contestant to go get her speech, and then we will begin. But as I said, they have spent hours preparing for this, and it's a great opportunity. And remember, as they're walking, please remember, as they are walking across the stage, to refrain from applause. Our first contestant this morning, Ms. Lauren Hinley.
Racism, prejudice, and hate. At the age of 10, I learned far more about these topics than any 10-year-old should. January 28, 2008 started as a typical day in my 5th grade life, going to school, playing outside, and not having a single thing to worry about, until my mom received a call. I did not know it at the time, but this call would change my life forever. On the other end of the phone was my aunt from North Carolina. She was calling to tell my mom that my Uncle Jimmy was in the hospital. The reason he was in the hospital? He had been shot and killed. My uncle, James K.I. Monty Jr., was shot by a man named Garland King. This man was his father-in-law. The reason he was murdered was his race. His father-in-law could not stand the fact that his black daughter was married to a white man. When this tragic event first struck my life, it brought nothing but pain and sorrow to my family. But as my tears dried, I began to ask myself why this happened. I questioned, why would someone kill my uncle? How could someone have enough hate to take another person's life? And why would they take that life for something as minor as someone's skin color? It was then, as I asked these questions, that my life changed. It would have been easy for me to let this incident breed hate within myself. And for a long time, it did. At just 10 years old, I found myself wondering what I would do if I ever came face to face with this man, to make him feel the pain that I felt. These are thoughts that should never have to cross a child's mind. I soon began to realize I could not let this cycle of hate continue. I had to lead my life in the footsteps of my uncle, who had not a hateful bone in his body. He lived his life with the purpose of doing for others and loving others as he would love himself. He was always concerned with the well-being of his fellow man over his own, often bringing people into his home until they can get back on their feet. Remembering my uncle's life and what he stood for, I knew what he would have wanted for me. I knew that he would not want me to hate this man despite what he had done. I knew that I could not justify my hate for this man because I had never once met him. I may detest what he had done, but I could not hate someone I did not know. When I came to these realizations, my perspective on life changed. I became more aware of the animosity that exists in society. Statements such as, "That girl is so annoying, I hate her," once seemed so harmless. I now realize the ignorance behind them. When people say these things, do they really mean it? The answer is no. Hate is such a powerful emotion, and although you do not like someone for trivial reasons, you do not hate them. These realizations made me change myself and those around me. It was not enough that I changed my own views, but I also had to change the beliefs of my loved ones to be more accepting and forgiving. Since the death of my uncle, I have worked hard to alter the racial preconceptions made by many around me through enlightenment and awareness. Although it may not appear to make a difference in the overall picture, every person who stands up against racism creates a ripple effect of those to follow. From this tragedy, I have learned to lead a life like my uncle's and strive to change the world around me. I lost someone I love due to hatred. And for that reason, I ask you to let the hate end here. I stand before you today pleading that you look inside yourself and think before you speak, choosing words of compassion rather than hatred, because your words have meaning and can cause pain in someone else's life. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mr. Sam Tubman.
Fear is one of the most powerful forces known to man. Every day, millions of people bow down to their own fears because overcoming them is just too difficult. I experienced this firsthand on a fateful summer afternoon in 2005. At 7 years old, I was just a doe-eyed boy floating through life without a care in the world. But what no one ever tells you when you're in the second grade is that 10 years later, when you're on the cusp of graduating high school, you will look back on moments that seemed insignificant and find the greatest meanings. I can still remember how the newly cut grass felt on my skin, soft and slightly cool in contrast to that humid August air. In that moment, my dad was driving home from picking up a dog in need of a new home. The first time I felt truly afraid came in the moments after my dad opened the passenger side door to reveal the slobbering hellhound I would be forced to live with. This beast had razor-sharp teeth that could shred through flesh and crush small bones approximately the size of my leg. His cold black eyes and deafening bark pierced through my soul. He yearned for blood. He was the epitome of evil. He was a 2-foot-tall beagle named Thunder. The first night with Thunder will forever be embedded in my memory. My mom had made oven-baked chicken wings, and throughout the day I had gotten more used to Thunder, and even built up the nerve to pet him. I would soon learn that chicken wings unleashed the wild animal I saw earlier that afternoon. First, he looked up at me with those puppy dog eyes. I could tell he wanted the chicken. So, foolishly, I held out the crispy wing. In an instant, he leaped at my hand. I vaguely remember him foaming at the mouth, his teeth growing larger and sharper at the sight of his next prey. The hellhound was back. I was terrified. The next thing I knew, I was sprinting awkwardly to my room, wing in hand, appendages flailing. With this beast biting at my heels, I threw the chicken to the hardwood floor behind me and slammed the door as I entered my room. At this point, 7-year-old Sam Tubman was bawling his eyes out. How could this pup my dad brought to our house to play with and love betray me like this? From the second I saw that dog, I knew he was evil. And it turns out I was right. Or so I thought. My dad slowly cracked the bedroom door open a tiny bit, Thunder in his arms. I quickly retreated to the bed in the corner of my room, tears still streaming down my face. In that moment, I wanted to be anywhere else. I closed my eyes tighter than I ever have in my life as I screamed for my dad to flee. But when I opened my eyes, my dad and Thunder were sitting on the bed next to me. Something happened to me after that, which changed my view on life forever. Thunder crept up beside me and he started licking my face. In an instant, my view of him changed. He became comforting and loving. How could I have been so wrong about this gentle creature? I learned something on my bed that day. I learned that my preconceived notions of this dog were wrong, and it was my fear of what this dog could be that kept me from learning what he truly was. Sure, he had sharp teeth, he barked sometimes, and he loved chicken. But for the time we had him, he never did anything to hurt anyone in my family. In his family. The truth was, Thunder was a new experience for me, and that scared me because when we take a chance on something new, there's always a possibility we could end up hurt or damaged. But if we never take these chances in our lives, we never meet a dog as special as Thunder. The fact is, it's not a dog or even the idea of change that scares us. What scares us is the unknown. High school is a perfect example. It's a new experience for every freshman, and you can either hide from the change or embrace it. You can either run to your room and cry, or you can walk up to that terrifying, vicious dog and pet him. Because something beautiful happens after you pet that dog. It ceases to be something out of a nightmare and transforms into something you can love. Life is full of new experiences and change, but what defines us as people is how we react and ultimately adapt. College will prove to be my next great challenge, and as I walk away from my comfortable life in Smithfield, I will hold with me the same lessons I learned on that fateful summer night. If I had let my fear of this hellhound I constructed in my mind to dictate my I would never fall in love with a little pup called Thunder. Thank you.
our next contestant, Miss Cassie Lang.
Each and every person on the planet is afraid of something, rational or irrational. While some fears, such as fire or heights, may pose very real threats, the fear is all in your head. Then there are other fears that don't have any real danger, like commitment and embarrassment, among an endless number of other things. These fears can hold you back from making your life everything that you want it to be. The quote I have chosen to speak about today is by a woman named Stephanie Mellish. This quote relates to my lifelong philosophy about not letting your fears control your life. Mellish shares some interesting words for us to think about today. Fear is an idea crippling, experience crushing, success stalling inhibitor inflicted only by yourself. Being afraid of something can do you no good. Overcome those fears and your life will improve tremendously. A little over a year ago, I made a pretty big decision. I decided that I wanted a change in my life, and I cut all my hair off. I wasn't certain of what the outcome would be or how it would look, but that didn't stop me from doing it. People tend to use their hair as a shield, but I can't hide behind mine anymore. Losing your hair is like losing a part of yourself. But in this experience, I was able to discover a whole new side of myself as well. Ultimately, it was the best decision I've made so far in my life. While it was scary, that didn't stop me from doing it. Because I made the decision to overcome my fear, I am a much happier and much more confident person than I was before. I didn't let my fear's unknown territory cripple me and keep me away from such an incredible experience. This quote also relates to me in a much bigger aspect as well. For about 5 years now, I have been living with a fairly minor heart condition called AV nodal reentrant tachycardia. Now that probably doesn't make much sense to anybody in this room. Basically, what happens is, on occasion, my heart rate jumps from an average rate, which is 60 beats per minute, to 120 to 200 beats per minute, and can last anywhere from 5 minutes to 5 hours. When I have an episode, it feels like my heart is going to jump right out of my chest, like there is a drummer ferociously drumming away inside of me. When the episode stops, it feels like my heart stops. It feels like someone reaches inside my chest, wraps their hand around my heart, and squeezes with all their might. And then my heart rate returns to normal. Afterwards, I'm exhausted, because it's almost as if I just ran a marathon, when in reality, I was just sitting still. This condition caused me problems for a couple of years before I was put on medication twice a day to regulate my heart rate. In March, I finally decided that I will go through the procedure to fix this over the summer, because I knew I couldn't keep living my life dependent on medication. Going through with this can make my life so much better, as scary as it may be, and I refuse to let my fear of what could go wrong get in the way of bettering my life. We all face things in our life that terrify us. I'm doing it right now as I stand up on this stage, looking out with the hundreds of pairs of eyes staring back at me. Getting up in front of an auditorium full of people is incredibly terrifying for me, because public speaking is one of my biggest fears. You can imagine my heart right now. I knew I would regret it if I decided not to participate in this competition. I'm very glad that I went through with this, and I believe that it will be one of my greatest memories from my time at Smithfield High School. Fear is an idea crippling, experience crushing, success stalling inhibitor inflicted only by yourself. So let me ask you, what are you afraid of? What makes you so scared that it is holding you back from doing what you really want? Next time you are faced with an opportunity and you are thinking about not doing it because you fear what could happen, push past that and don't let your fears control your life. Thank you.
The next contestant is Miss Allison Walker.
Anxiety. The web defines this as a nervous disorder characterized by a state of excessive uneasiness and apprehension, typically with compulsive behavior or panic attacks. Each day, I am constantly feeling threatened, alone, and on edge. I can't tell you the first day I experienced my anxiety, but what I can say is it seemed to progress rapidly on the first day of high school. I look back on that first day 4 years ago all the time. It seemed like it would never get better, but now I follow a few wise words of wisdom by the famous basketball player Michael Jordan. He said, "Obstacles don't have to stop you. If you run into a wall, don't turn around and give up. Figure out how to climb it, go through it, or work around it." But on that first day of 9th grade, this would have seemed impossible to believe. It was a humid August morning when my nightmare began. There was a constant pain in my chest that had persisted all throughout the previous night and continued the next day. I woke up groggy and with unsteady hands. I prepared for those agonizing 6 hours of classes, and my heart was accelerating. My legs were barely functioning as we approached the school. I could feel my stomach doing flips as I walked through those doors that housed so much of the unknown pain that I would have to face. This wall that paralyzed me with fear showed no signs of surrendering. Staying hidden behind that wall, I got through my first day of high school, and the next 3 years. I could tell from the start of high school that this wall was going to stay and put up a fight. It was going to get much worse. I couldn't have been more right about my increased anxiety levels. With each day, those walls got stronger and held a greater power over me. The only escape I had was leaving class so I could have a release from the constant panic I felt. Soon enough, I was unable to ask in front of my class to leave because even that terrified me. My grades began to slip throughout my freshman and sophomore year, and my teachers grew angry with my excessive trips to the nurse. What's even worse is the constant fear had taken its toll on my body. I was drained physically and emotionally. People often associate being anxious with the actual anxiety disorder. There are no words that could explain how much time my anxiety has taken out of my life. I missed out on so many opportunities and simple tasks. I could go on about what these were, but it still wouldn't do justice to the emotional toll it had on my life. How come no one else felt like I did? Why was I so alone? It was during my junior year that I found myself lost, alone, and suffering from a deep depression. I missed many social events and activities because I was too anxious to attend, and my parents had noticed my downward spiral. My destructive behaviors and poor attitude frightened them, and it was in that moment I had realized how much of a prisoner I was in my own body. I let this disease take over and consume me. This is not where I wanted to be in life. Scared to go to school, not being able to speak in class, and living in fear. These walls were holding me back from my life. There were incidents where my anxiety would skyrocket unexpectedly, and my tightened chest would become unbearable. These attacks were terrifying because each time it really felt like my world was going to end and I couldn't breathe. I was living in a nightmare and could not wake up. I did not want to suffer anymore and wanted to live as pain-free as I could. I decided I was fed up and it was time to alter my behaviors. One of my close friends inspired me to try one scary thing each day. She taught me that once I faced my fear, it would not seem as intimidating anymore, which meant I had one less thing to fear in my everyday life. People often underestimate just how debilitating anxiety can be. It's not just being stressed out over a test or being nervous before a game. Anxiety disorders are crippling and torture the mind. This anxiety I suffer from is a never-ending struggle that I face each day. I know that some of my fears are completely irrational, and I have worked towards breaking down those walls. Some things I have done that were out of my comfort zone were playing sports, getting a job, participating in the senior fashion show, and even trying a new piece of equipment at the gym. The greatest of all is participating in this contest. 4 years ago, I never would have thought this was possible. Now, as I'm standing in front of over 900 people, I can say that I'm not afraid. I figured out how to knock down the walls that stood in front of me for so long. I have an amazing life ahead of me, and now I am confident that each obstacle that I face, I will knock that wall down with determination, no matter how impossible and scary it may seem. Anxiety, something that I have overcome. Thank you.
Our next contestant, Mr. Stephen Clark.
Though life may not be something we always understand, there's always a lesson to be learned. 18 years has taught me so much. The biggest of which is that I have so much more left to learn. But today I want to share with you 18 of the things I've learned during the past 18 years. Life isn't planned, it simply happens. But that's what makes life worth living. You never stop learning. Over the course of my life, I've seen many valleys and peaks, and while we may not always know when we're on a peak, we seem to always notice when we've hit a valley. Life is constantly changing, and so are we. Life goes on whether you want it to or not. Live for now. I know it's cliche, but life really is a roller coaster. We've all had those moments when you sit alone in silence, just replaying something over and over and over, hoping that maybe the mental relapse will somehow make the pain go away. Pain is natural. Let your body feel it, but don't allow it to linger. Pain only makes us human, so embrace its coming, but don't let it feel welcome. Among the many things in life to be happy about, love is definitely one of them. I've tried to put into words the way love feels, but it's just one of those incomparable things that words simply can't do justice to. But my God, does it make life worth living. Learn to love. Love others, and most importantly, love yourself. Love even when it's difficult. And sometimes love is difficult because you end up brokenhearted with all these unanswered questions and regret, and you just feel so hopeless. A broken heart hurts just as much as a broken bone. Allow yourself time to let it heal just like any other injury. But don't you ever, ever let one broken heart be the reason you stop loving. Sometimes it's not always a relationship you end up brokenhearted over. If senior year has taught me one thing, it's that someone who's your friend in September may not be your friend in April. Eventually, you'll come to discover who was always there for you and who never really was. Throughout the journey that has been my life, I've come to realize maturity doesn't come with age. Some people never grow up, they just get older. Laugh. A lot. Whether it's at a funny joke or an old memory, I promise you'll be so much happier if you laugh more. Life's too short to be serious. Take each day as a new journey. Not everyone is going to hurt you. I know trusting is hard. I've been hurt more times than I can count. Trust can be absolutely crippling, but every once in a while, you'll meet someone and you'll let your walls down and they'll show you that not everyone is the same. The world is not a cynical place. I'll admit, this one took me the longest to realize. Life is going to really hurt sometimes, yes, but it won't be like that forever. I promise. If I had more than just 5 minutes, I could tell you of all the times I thought my world was crashing down around me. But despite it all, I'm standing in front of 1,000 people telling you the 18 things I've learned during the past 18 years of my life. While we're on the topic of your surroundings, look up every once in a while. Notice how tall your brother's gotten, how proud your friend is of winning their last match, or how much your sister laughs when she's tired. Life will pass you by if you forget to look around. Make memories, but be ambitious too. Remember how much life you have left to live. Chase after what you want, and don't let anyone ever tell you your dream is too big. You are in charge of your own destiny. Remember, your words are powerful. I know just as well as anyone else that words can really hurt. And while I'm in no way innocent of hurting others with what I say, I think we all need to think a little bit more before we speak. Pain is real, and words can really hurt. Life won't always be fair. Life will hit you, hard, in the face, wait for you to get back up, just so it can kick you in the stomach. But sometimes getting the wind knocked out of you is the only way to remind your lungs how much they like the taste of air. Breathe. Let go of what hurts you and abstain from getting angry. Free yourself from the hate you harbor and allow yourself to move on. Life is too precious to miss out on being happy. Set goals. If you don't go after what you want, you'll never have it. If you never ask, you'll never know the answer. If you never take the next steps, you'll always be in the same. All too often, people struggle with trying to find themselves. But life isn't about trying to find yourself. It's about creating yourself. You could walk the entire world and still come home empty-handed. Create something you're proud of. While most things that happen in your life are up to you, there is one loophole. The truth is, you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. Because no matter how wide you stretch your fingers, your hands will always be too small to catch all the pain you want to heal. Believe me, I've tried. The final lesson I'll leave you with today is one I've only learned myself very recently. It's something I think we all need to remember every once in a while, and if that's all you take away from my speech today, then I've accomplished what I came here to do. Live for you. Remember, you're important too. Thank you.
Our next contestant is Mr. Howard Hughes.
If you can, I would like you to take a moment to turn and look at your closest friend. Think about everything you notice about them, everything you know, have experienced, felt, or even witnessed. Now, by contrast, I would like you to think about everything you don't know about that person. How is their family like? What do they feel every single time they step inside this building? When was the last time they were scared? What's their favorite book, or do they even read? Who affects them the most? Is it you? Or is it themselves? It's scary when we come to this realization. No matter how hard you try, no matter how much you may think you know someone, there's a large percentage of uncertainty and inevitable ignorance. I like to relate it to this. When our minds think of someone we know, we are presented with a wall. Our brain fills the space of this wall with anything known at face value. What they look like, how they act towards you, how they act towards others, and any experiences you may have that include them. Think of it like a bunch of newspaper clippings that date back to the first time you met that person. This wall may look fine, but what we fail to see is what is behind that wall. All those questions I posed earlier, they're all answered. Every single feeling, every single justification, thought, memory, fear, and emotion are all back there. What makes it even more real is the fact that that space goes on infinitely, surely packed with the true definition of who someone actually is, not just the wall that we put up in front of it. The reason why I'm standing here right now and speaking to you is because we, as individuals and as a society, have become much, much too comfortable with everyone's walls. We are convinced ourselves that by default, what we see on that wall overrules and unjustly defines a person. I'm truly sick of this because in reality, that primary view is normally a very negative one. Much too often, we are way too caught up in our own minds to even begin to think outside our comfort zone, let alone the personal comfort zone of a completely separate individual. We like to think of life as a story, and we are the main character, while everyone else is just some one-dimensional extra that affects us in minimal ways. Psychologists call this the fundamental attribution error, and even though it's a lot of words, it's subconsciously processed through all of our thoughts, whether we like it or not. Everyone comes to terms with this, and seems to overlook the fact that we are comfortable with knowing little to nothing about the people that we interact with every single day. The basis of my advice to the class of 2016 and to the entire school is to simply care. Since caring leads to thinking, thinking leads to comprehension, and comprehension leads to accuracy, a quality that is a majority of the time withheld when we think of others. I challenge you to care about any detail you would normally overlook. I challenge you to step out of the comfort zone of an egocentric mindset. I challenge you to just jump up and down a few times to see if you can look over that wall. Honestly, I just want you to face the reality that there really is so much hidden behind the facade that everyone puts up. All you need is the ability to care, to listen, and to judge without negativity. I want you to walk out of this room. I want you to look at the first person you see and think about everything you could reveal, not everything you would ignore by default. Let's not run our lives being blind to the world. Tell your story with all your characters involved. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Rhiannon Simmons.
Bonjour, ça va? Je m'appelle Rhiannon. Et vous? And that confused look that you're all giving me right now is the exact look that I gave Madame Dempsey on the first day of freshman year. I was sitting in the back of the classroom, sandwiched between two senior football players. Yeah, scary. We all had to introduce ourselves. You know, the usual, hi, my name is Rhiannon, and I like to sing, but in French. Then we listened to Madame introduce herself. It was a simple introduction, but I'll never forget it. Mainly because she has become one of the most influential people in my life, and partly because I was so nervous that I clung to every word she said until I understood it perfectly. After the first day, though, I wasn't nervous anymore. Miss Khaleesi once said that Madame is able to set her students at ease due to her own comfort in the classroom. She takes away the fear. And Miss Khaleesi, I couldn't agree more. Madame Dempsey graduated from Skidmore College, where she majored in French. She then earned her master's degree in teaching French at Assumption College, and furthered her studies in numerous universities in both France and Spain. She is currently a member of the Rhode Island Foreign Language Association, the American Association of Teachers of French, the American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages. The list goes on and on. Now, while these are all very highly acclaimed titles, let me tell you what I learned about Madame Dempsey over the last 4 years. Madame loves music and theater. Her love for music has allowed her to travel all over the world. She also helped with Smithfield High School's production of The Wizard of Oz. Madame is a perfectionist. She loves everything to go the way she plans. But I guess that's important to a language teacher, especially when teaching vocabulary and the simple pronunciation of a word can change the word from meaning winter to drunk. Madame is very family-oriented. She often tells us about her daughters, her husband, and even her mother's cat. The most important thing I learned, though, was that Madame would help me through anything. If I was having a bad day, she'd take it easy on me. When I was worried about SAT scores, she sat with me and helped me figure out what to do next. She always knew exactly what to say and would do everything in her power to help. Madame has always been the teacher that I could go to for anything. I knew that she would help me and give me the support that I needed. She has become like a second mother to me, and I cannot express how dearly I'm going to miss her after this year. Throughout my 4 years of taking French, our class size has dwindled from about 20 students to 7. But as the years went on, those 7 of us became so close to Madame. We learned how amazing she is, not only as a teacher and a mentor, but as a friend. She has earned numerous titles that qualify her as an amazing teacher. In 2001, she was named Smithfield's Teacher of the Year. Then, in 2012, she was named the Rhode Island Foreign Language Association's Teacher of the Year. She then earned the illustrious title of the 2013 Teacher of the Year by the Northeast Conference on the Teaching of Foreign Languages. She never ceases to amaze her students and fellow teachers with her achievements. Madame Dempsey is truly an amazing person. She was the best teacher I've ever had, and I will miss her dearly. I will miss our fancy French Fridays where we would all dress up and bring in French food to eat. I will miss flights where we got to go to Anna McCabe Elementary School and teach the 4th graders French. I will even miss her giving our class that look of anger when we ask a question on something she just explained. Thank you, Madame, for being there for me these past 4 years. You have taught me so much, not only about French, but about myself and about life. I will use the knowledge that you have given me every day, and I will always cherish it. You have truly been one of the most influential people in my life, and when I can no longer call you my teacher, I will be proud to call you my friend. Thank you, Madame.
Our next speaker is Ashley Shilko.
Picture this. You click on Instagram on the school Wi-Fi and your phone won't let you look at it for the rest of the day. You lost the game and went 0 for 3 when you got up to bat. You try to get up, but then remember that you can't walk anymore. You see and hold the hand of a loved one for the last time. Which of these people would be having the worst day? If you say the Instagram thing, this is going to be a long 5 minutes. Good morning, my name is Ashley Shilko, and no, you don't have to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance after I say that today. Although I may just be an 18-year-old girl, I have found that perspective is something you learn from experience, which can happen very early in your life or later. I have found that part of having perspective is only being concerned with problems that are in your control. This is a valuable lesson I believe I learned from my parents as well as my grandmothers. I find myself wondering to them aloud how they have stayed so happy when I believe they have all had what one would call a difficult life. My dad lost his father when he was 9 years old and lost his brother to leukemia early in his life as well. It was not an easy childhood for him. But today, when he compares his work and financial problems to what he experienced when he was younger, he can appreciate the wonderful life he has been able to live even more. He has perspective. And my mom, who had to grow up with divorced parents and eventually seeing her sister becoming very ill with MS, compares her own recent health issues to the daily struggles of her sister, who had to fight a never-ending battle with MS each and every day. And both of my grandmothers, who had to deal with problems a family never wants to face, have each lost a husband, as well as parents, siblings, and children, and also deal with constant health issues. But they still find a way to smile, one with her only 2 teeth, and appreciate the time they get to spend with us, or even just talk to us. They can do this because they have perspective. All of them know that what they have faced has not been easy, as do many others, but they know they can compare their smaller problems to the bigger ones in order to be even more thankful for what they have. I have learned from my family members that having perspective comes from life experience, no matter at what point in your life you realize this. You can also learn from people you don't know, like the hungry and the homeless, how precious all the moments of our lives actually are. When you don't like the school lunch sitting in front of you, think about these people and how much they would give to have a meal like ours. I'm not saying to constantly stuff your face with the tater tots at lunch, but appreciate those tots and appreciate the life you are living in school each day. Or maybe you hate school and all the new education policies. Well, there are so many people in this world who are not even given the opportunity to attend school. Think about them. Perspective. And we all hear our parents say when we don't eat our veggies when we're little, think of the children starving in Africa, and we think they're kind of silly. But if you seriously think of the children and adults around the world that have to struggle each day, wondering where their next meal will come from, or the towns that have never seen a doctor or any medical professional in their lives, you will learn to appreciate our privileges even more. No matter what it takes for you to have perspective, appreciating what you have can be as easy as asking yourself, do I really have it that bad? If the answer is yes, then that is the moment you can always bring your life back to keep everything in perspective. Here's some words of wisdom from Muhammad Ali to help you understand what I mean. Often it isn't the mountains ahead that wear you out, it's the little pebble in your shoe. Augmenting a small problem doesn't make you feel any better today, it only empties you of your energy and I believe that having perspective can help you understand the person next to you, the veteran you saw at a nursing home, the people in third world countries, a child suffering in the hospital, and even yourself a lot more. Seeing your life through the lens of someone else can help you see the world in a whole new light. And when you see through these lenses, you appreciate life more than you ever thought possible. So today, and for however many days you have, remember to put things in perspective. When Swami Muktananda, an Indian yoga guru, first visited the United States, he walked into a large modern terminal. He stood for a while, looking around at the enormous airport, so different from India, he might have been on another planet. He saw a vast assortment of food, drinks, magazines, padded and upholstered furniture. The restrooms were free and had hot and cold running water, and everyone was adequately dressed. The airport was clean and well lit, and the whole place, the size of most villages in his homeland, was not only air-conditioned, but carpeted. Even so, he saw the passengers rushing by, hurrying to their planes, seemingly not appreciating any of it. They live in paradise, he observed. I wonder if they'll ever know. Perspective. Thank you.
Our next contestant, Mr. Matthew Strick.
The year was 1956. The average working man was the staple of a thriving post-war society. One could say that the dream, the American dream, was alive. So, what better time for Peter and Maria Strick to decide to leave their native Netherlands to make a new life in America? A vast ocean of perhaps incomprehensible size was there to be crossed. And at 28 and 25 years old, the newlywed couple forged a path to a new world. In a country as naked to their eyes as it was to the explorers of the 15th and 16th centuries, my grandfather, Peter, was pleased to have found a working sponsorship in Michigan. He would do what he had always done back in his native Holland. He would bake. He eventually opened a bakery of his own, appropriately naming it Strick's Bakery. This was the dream. How could it not be? He established a growing, self-owned business in a thriving country. America has always been a home for those who wish to renew their lives. Is this not the foundation on which our country was established those many years ago in a dingy colonial meeting house? That was the grand vision. And for my grandparents and millions like them, it would be exactly that. A few years later, that bakery, that symbol of the American dream, the epicenter of our family, burned to the ground. Years of progress, determination, and passion were reduced to nothing by the merciless tyranny of fire. But the iron fist of Mother Nature paled in comparison to that of Adolf Hitler's Third Reich, which they had thankfully escaped just a decade or so earlier. My grandfather sheltered a family of Jewish refugees under his floorboards as his native Holland was torn apart by German bombs. My grandmother's own father served in the Dutch army for several years. Neither of them was a stranger to loss. Together they overcame this devastating setback and changed direction. Peter found various jobs as a baker while my grandmother maintained steady factory work. Along the way, they brought 3 children into this world to share in that small piece of the American dream that they had carved out for themselves. And eventually the family settled in Little Rhode Island, where they still live today. I would guess that every person in this auditorium has a story or two just like that. A story of determination. But above all, a story of the American dream. Yes, we may look, act, or talk differently from one another, but we all have something in common. We live in a place where generations upon generations of brave families came to gaze upon the face of opportunity and to be treated with the utmost respect and equality. So today I would like you to consider these questions. Are we a people that have forgotten our founding principles? Are we a people that frown upon families that come here from a country of oppression? Are we a people who believes that opportunity is exclusive to those born in the United States of America? A people who have forgotten that our grandparents and great-grandparents were the very individuals who, decades ago, also wanted to start anew, to escape injustice, and to seek out the best opportunities for themselves and their families. If my grandparents had not been welcomed at the doorstep of America all those years ago, I would not be here today. And I suspect the same is true for nearly everyone in this room. America and the American dream has defined itself by incorporating beliefs and ideas from people of all corners of the earth. We should look to learn that all that our country has gained from immigration. The famous American apple pie, well, that's an old English dish. Our very government is a borrowed system from ancient Greece and Rome. The music we call American is firmly rooted in West African, Irish, and Cuban traditions. This country is even named after an Italian, the explorer Amerigo Vespucci. America is a cohesion of identities blended together to create a diverse and vibrant culture. It is time to stop looking at immigrants as if they were infiltrating our way of life. They are not a thorn in the side of an otherwise prosperous nation. Immigrants are the very foundation on which our nation was built. It is time to re-establish the principle that all men, regardless of where they are born, are created equal. They are our coworkers, our neighbors, our friends, and our family. They are our past, our present, and our future. They are Peter and Maria Strick. They are you, and they are me. Thank you.
Our final contestant, Dante Marcascio.
Stress. The very word just creates anxiety. How much time do you spend being stressed about your list of things you need to do every day? Actually, how much time does everyone in this auditorium spend dealing with stress? Probably many more hours than anyone wants to admit. At least 77% of people in the United States say that they regularly experience stress, whether it be physical or mental. And how about this? The top causes for stress here in the United States are job pressure, money, relationships, and sleep deprivation. High school students deal with many of these things every day. I know I deal with almost all of them, and I'm sure you can agree that being stressed is not a state anyone enjoys being in. Unfortunately, stress is a part of life, and it will always be there. Some people can deal with it better than others, but for some, it takes over their entire life. The best advice that I could give to any underclassmen is to never let stress be a limitation to your lifestyle. Like nearly everyone else, when I tend to get stressed and have limited time, I just wish the clock would move faster so I can get things over with. If I know I have a long school day ahead of me, my mind already starts processing all the different ways I can get through the day faster. It's lab day. That means I won't be confined to my desk and the class should move by faster. Excuses like this one always go through my head, and sometimes they work, but other times they just lead me to realizing that I have so much more going on. If it's lab day, that means I have to find time to do my calculations on top of my chapter homework. This just creates an infinite cycle of me wishing time would go by faster so I can just get all of the stress out of the way. The faster I get through each school day, the faster I get home, and the faster I can finish all my homework. But when I finally get all that done, I just start the loop all over again. New chapters, new homework, new labs. And this cycle continues until it is June, and the school year is over. For the past few years, this has been great news. A 2-month break where I can make some money and do things that I love to do. 2 months that are nearly stress-free. But things are a little different this year. On June 16th, 2015, pending any additional snow days, I will graduate from Smithfield High School. I realize now that my entire high school career has been a mental race, and I am almost at the finish line. All the time spent making friends and developing relationships with students and teachers, even building a reputation and making a difference at the school, will all disappear into the shadows of the past. It is now that I realize that every day I spent being stressed about studying, or having tons of homework on top of a shift at work, or even having 4 hours of musical rehearsal after school, these were the best parts of my high school career. The stress is what made the experience so memorable and so important. These stressful times changed me as a person and made me realize who I truly am. Unfortunately, my time here is nearly up, and in just 2 short months, I will start a new chapter in my life. Although I am reaching the end of my high school career, I can still take what I have learned and use it to help those who may go through the same experience. Stress is defined as a state of mental or emotional strain resulting from very demanding circumstances. If something is causing you to struggle as much as you claim it is, then you must truly care about that situation. This means that whatever you are stressed about is what actually has meaning and a purpose in your life. So, why would you want to rush through the time in your life that is defining you as a person? Wouldn't that time be full of the most critical moments of your life? So don't rush it. Wish for time to just slow down instead. Be grateful that you have something that impacts your life so deeply. Enjoy every passing minute of it, because before you know it, the clock of your youth will stop ticking, and you will walk across the stage at your graduation with all those defining moments being cast away in the waves of the past. Stop wishing your life away. Start living it. Thank you.
As the tabulators finish their calculations, Mrs. Dempsey and I would like to thank the following people: the administration and the student council for their donation of today's trophies, Mrs. Gelsomino and Mr. Stone, our timekeepers. Mr. Cabral and the math department for acting as our tabulator. Stephen Cunningham and Alex Brown, our lighting and sound. Mrs. Khaleesi and Mr. Hurley, our escorts today. The judges, can you please stand, judges, and be recognized again? Mrs. Harnoy, Salzer, all of our coaches, Mrs. Khaleesi, Mrs. Dempsey, Mr. Hurley, Mrs. Pimentel, Mr. Spring, Mr. Young, Mrs. Young, and Mr. Zabelli. Glorious and Mr. Lenore for recording today's competition. And of course the freshman class for their generous donation of today's refreshments. I will now ask our principal, Mr. Kelly, and our former principal, Mr. Salisbury, to come to the stage to help announce today's winners. Let's give a big round of applause for Mr. Kudo, Mr. Kemper.
Ashley Shilko. Second place, Mr. Howard Hughes. And the winner of the 2015 Senior Oratorical is Mr. Matthew Smith. Give a big round of applause for our I would like to introduce former principal here at Smithfield High School, Mr. Salisbury, who would like to share a few words.
Charles M. Schwab, the American industrialist at the head of Bethlehem Steel. He made $1 million a year salary. And one day, a reporter asked Mr. Schwab why he thought he was worth $1 million a year. And Mr. Schwab answered this. He said, I consider my ability to arouse enthusiasm among my workers as my greatest asset. So I'm very reluctant to criticize, for fear that I would thwart their enthusiasm. You see, enthusiasm turns average into good and good into great. Enthusiasm turns fatigue into energy, I guarantee that. And these people today, with their enthusiasm just to join and volunteer, is the epitome of a high school career. And those who use words effectively will be the leaders in their generation. Language is the highest expression of our humanity. My congratulations to the 12 behind me for their enthusiasm, their passion, and their leadership. And I look forward to seeing their name in print in a positive way in the future. Thank you. Nice to see you guys again.
By the way. Thank you very much. And so, seniors, you may be dismissed. Followed by juniors. Contestants will stand on stage for pictures. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Good vacation.
Folks, we're going to period F.